April 26th, 1986. In northern Ukraine, a nuclear reactor explodes. A plume of radioactive material shoots into the night sky. It will spread across Europe, contaminating thousands of square miles. 31 people die in the immediate aftermath. Thousands more will suffer radiation sickness. The true death toll may never be known. An entire city is abandoned. A vast exclusion zone will remain uninhabitable for centuries. It is the worst nuclear disaster in human history, a catastrophe that shakes the Soviet Union to its core and accelerates its collapse. This is Chernobyl. The Cold War between the Soviet Union and the West has raged for 40 years. Both superpowers race to build more advanced weapons, more powerful technology. Nuclear energy promises unlimited electricity, power to drive entire nations forward. The Soviets construct dozens of nuclear plants across their vast empire. By 1986, the Soviet Union operates 43 nuclear reactors. They provide 10% of the country's electricity. The flagship of this nuclear program sits 60 miles north of Kiev, Ukraine's capital city. The Vladimir Ilyich Lenin Nuclear Power Station, known simply as Chernobyl. The plant has 4 massive RBMK reactors already running. 2 more are under construction. Each reactor can generate 1,000 megawatts of electrical power. Together, they supply energy to millions of Soviet citizens. The nearby city of Pripyat has been built specifically to house the plant's workers. 49,000 people live here. Young families, scientists, engineers. The city boasts modern apartments, schools, restaurants, an amusement park. It is a model Soviet city, a symbol of progress and the bright communist future. But beneath this surface prosperity, danger lurks. The RBMK reactor design has a fatal flaw. The Soviets know this, but the information is classified, kept secret even from the operators who work the reactors every day. Under certain conditions, the reactor becomes unstable. Power can surge uncontrollably. The chain reaction can spiral out of control in seconds. Soviet engineers believe strict safety protocols will prevent disaster. They are wrong. April 25th, 1986. Reactor 4 at Chernobyl is scheduled for a routine shutdown and maintenance. Before the reactor goes offline, engineers plan to run a safety test. The test will check if the reactor's turbines can generate enough electricity, even as they slow down, to power the emergency cooling system during a blackout. It is an important safety feature. Previous tests have failed. Deputy Chief Engineer Anatoly Dyatlov supervises the operation. He is a demanding, abrasive man, impatient with delays, contemptuous of those who question him. The test is supposed to begin in the afternoon. But grid controllers delay the shutdown. Kyiv needs the power. The test is postponed for 9 hours. By the time it begins, the experienced day shift has gone home. The night shift takes over, less experienced, less prepared. Senior reactor control engineer Leonid Toptunov is just 26 years old. He has worked at Chernobyl for less than a year. Shift supervisor Alexander Akimov is only 33. He raises concerns about proceeding. Dyatlov dismisses them. The test will go ahead. Just after midnight on April 26th, the operators begin reducing the reactor's power. They must bring it down to between 700 and 1,000 megawatts, the ideal level for the test. But something goes wrong. A controller makes an error. The power drops too fast, plunging to just 30 megawatts. At such low power, the reactor becomes poisoned with xenon gas. It is dangerously unstable. Safety protocols demand they abort the test immediately. Dyatlov refuses. He orders them to continue. To raise the power back up, the operators withdraw most of the control rods, the graphite-tipped rods that regulate the nuclear reaction. This is a catastrophic violation of safety rules. With so few control rods inserted, the reactor is like a bomb waiting to explode. By 1:23 in the morning, power has climbed back to 200 megawatts. Still too low, still unstable, but Dyatlov insists they proceed. The operators begin the test. They shut off the emergency cooling system, as required by the test procedure. The reactor's temperature starts to climb. Steam builds up inside the core. Unknown to the operators, a deadly feedback loop has begun. As the temperature rises, the water coolant turns to steam. More steam means less cooling. Less cooling means more heat. More heat creates more steam. The RBMK design has a fatal characteristic, a positive void coefficient. Instead of stabilizing when it overheats, this reactor accelerates. The chain reaction intensifies. Power surges. Inside the reactor core, the fuel rods begin to fracture. The temperature soars past 2,000 degrees Celsius. Warning alarms scream throughout the control room. Akimov realizes disaster is imminent. He shouts the command to execute an emergency shutdown. Toptonov slams the AZ-5 button, the emergency scram that will insert all the control rods at once and shut down the reactor. But the RBMK reactor has another design flaw, one that has never been revealed to the operators. The control rods have graphite tips. As they descend into the reactor, the graphite temporarily increases the reaction instead of slowing it. For 5 seconds, the power doesn't drop. It spikes. The reaction goes supercritical. Power surges to 30,000 megawatts, 10 times the reactor's maximum capacity. The fuel rods shatter. The reactor core melts. Superheated steam builds to impossible pressure. At 1:23 and 47 seconds, Reactor 4 explodes. 2 massive blasts tear the 1,000-ton concrete lid from the reactor. It flips upward like a manhole cover and crashes down at an angle, half covering the destroyed core. The explosions rip through the reactor building. The roof collapses. Flames erupt from the shattered core, a fire fueled by burning graphite and nuclear fuel. A pillar of radioactive smoke and debris shoots into the night sky. Burning graphite chunks, each one lethally radioactive, rain down on the surrounding buildings. The reactor's core lies exposed to the open air. It will burn for 10 days. In the control room, the operators are in shock. The lights have gone out. Emergency power kicks in. Dust and smoke fill the air. Akimov and Toptonov cannot comprehend what has happened. They believe there has been a hydrogen explosion in the cooling system. Serious, but manageable. The idea that the reactor itself has exploded, that the core lies open, is unthinkable. Such a thing is not supposed to be possible. Dyatlov rushes to the reactor hall. He sees flames and destruction, debris everywhere. But he too refuses to believe the reactor has been destroyed. He orders Akimov to keep pumping water into the reactor to cool it, unaware this will only spread more radioactive contamination. The first responders arrive within minutes. Firefighters from the plant's own fire brigade race to the scene. They see fires burning on the roof of the adjacent turbine hall. Chunks of graphite, glowing red hot, litter the ground. The men have no idea they are looking at pieces of the reactor core. They have no idea each chunk is emitting lethal doses of radiation. Lieutenant Vladimir Pravik leads his team onto the roof. They battle the fires with water hoses, getting closer and closer to the radiation source. Pravik and his men will receive doses of radiation exceeding 1,600 rem in the first hours. A dose of 400 rem is usually fatal. These men are dead already. They just don't know it yet. More fire brigades arrive from Pripyat and nearby towns. Vasily Ignatenko is a 25-year-old fireman. He rushes to the plant, leaving his pregnant wife behind. He and his comrades climb onto the roof. They fight the fires all through the night. Their rubber boots melt in the heat. Their hands blister from touching radioactive debris. By dawn, the fires on the roof are finally under control. But the reactor core still burns, and the firefighters, 28 men in total, have been exposed to radiation that will kill most of them within weeks. As the sun rises on April 26th, the true scale of the disaster begins to emerge. A helicopter flies over the reactor. The pilot radios back his report. The reactor core is destroyed. It lies open to the sky. The radiation levels are off the scale. But in Moscow, Soviet officials refuse to believe it. For hours, they insist the reports are wrong, exaggerated, impossible. The plant director, Viktor Bryukhanov, knows the truth, but he is terrified to admit the full extent of the catastrophe. To acknowledge such a failure would be to admit that Soviet technology, Soviet science, is flawed. In Pripyat, the residents wake to a normal Saturday morning. The explosion was loud enough to rattle windows. Some people saw the flames. But there has been no warning, no announcement. Children play in the streets. Families plan their weekend activities. Above them, invisible and odorless, a cloud of radioactive particles drifts on the wind. The radiation level in the city is already 800 times higher than normal. Every breath fills their lungs with radioactive isotopes. Iodine-131, which attacks the thyroid. Cesium-137, which remains in the soil for decades. Strontium-90, which lodges in bones and causes cancer. Still, the authorities say nothing. Police are ordered to cordon off the area around the plant, but no evacuation order is given. Hours pass. The silence continues. Only in the evening does the announcement finally come. The residents of Pripyat have 3 hours to pack their belongings. They are told it is a temporary evacuation. 3 days, maybe less. They can only take what they can carry. Documents, a few clothes, some food. Everything else must be left behind. On the morning of April 27th, 36 hours after the explosion, a convoy of over 1,000 buses arrives. 49,000 people are loaded aboard. The buses roll out in a long column. The residents look back at their city, at their homes, their possessions, their lives. They do not know they will never return. Pripyat stands empty now, a ghost city frozen in time. While the evacuation proceeds, a desperate battle begins at the reactor itself. The graphite fire in the core burns at over 2,000 degrees. It must be extinguished. If the fire reaches the other reactors, the entire plant could be destroyed. Soviet authorities mobilize a massive response. Military helicopters are brought in, Mi-8s and Mi-24s. Their mission: to fly directly over the exposed reactor and drop materials to smother the fire. Sand, clay, boron, lead, 5,000 tons in total. The helicopter crews know the danger. The radiation above the reactor is lethal. Each pass takes them directly through the radioactive plume. They can only fly a few missions before their exposure reaches dangerous levels. Pilot Vladimir Nestorenko makes over 60 flights. By the end, he can barely stand. The helicopter crews drop their loads with precision and courage. Slowly, over 5 days, they succeed in damping down the fire. But the radioactive smoke has already spread across Ukraine, Belarus, and beyond. Scandinavia, Poland, Germany, Austria. Radiation detectors across Europe register the contamination. The Soviet government can no longer hide what has happened. On April 28th, Swedish scientists detect unusual radiation levels. They trace it back to the Soviet Union and demand an explanation. Finally, Moscow is forced to acknowledge the truth. A brief, vague statement is broadcast on Soviet television. An accident has taken place at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Measures are being taken to eliminate the consequences. It is a stunning understatement, but it is all the Soviet public will be told for days. In the meantime, a human catastrophe unfolds. The firefighters and plant workers who fought the fires in the first hours are dying. They are taken to Moscow's Hospital No. 6, a special facility for radiation victims. The symptoms of acute radiation syndrome are horrific. Their skin turns red, then black. It peels away in sheets. Their internal organs fail one by one. Many are delirious with pain. Vasily Ignatenko, the young firefighter, dies on May 13th. His wife is forbidden from attending his funeral. She is pregnant. The radiation her husband absorbed has made his body dangerous even in death. He is buried in a lead coffin, encased in concrete. By the end of May, 28 firefighters and plant workers have died. But the real work is only beginning. The reactor core is still lethally radioactive. It must be contained. Soviet authorities launch a massive operation to clean up the disaster. They mobilize over 600,000 people: soldiers, miners, engineers, construction workers. They will become known as the liquidators. Their task is almost impossibly dangerous. First, the exposed reactor must be covered. Engineers design a giant structure, a concrete and steel shell called the sarcophagus. But before it can be built, the rubble and debris around the reactor must be cleared. Much of it is too radioactive for humans to approach. The Soviets send in robots, remote-controlled machines designed to clear the debris. But the radiation is so intense it fries their circuits. The robots fail. There is only one option left: human labor. Soldiers and reservists are sent onto the roof in shifts. They wear lead aprons and respirators. Minimal protection against the radiation. Each man is allowed 90 seconds on the roof. No more. They run out, shovel debris into the reactor hole, and run back. 90 seconds. Then the next man goes. Some receive a year's worth of safe radiation exposure in those 90 seconds. They call the roof the death roof. 3,500 men work in rotation, shoveling, scraping, pushing radioactive wreckage into the destroyed core. It is brutal, terrifying work. But slowly, they clear the roof. Beneath the reactor, another group of liquidators faces a different nightmare. Engineers fear the molten core will burn through the concrete pad beneath the reactor. If it reaches the water table below, it could trigger a catastrophic steam explosion, scattering radioactive material across half of Europe. The Soviets recruit coal miners from across Ukraine and Russia. Their mission: dig a tunnel beneath the reactor and install a concrete cooling pad. The miners work in shifts, tunneling through the earth in suffocating heat. The temperature underground reaches 50 degrees Celsius. They dig in minimal clothing, drenched in sweat, breathing radioactive dust. Many will die of cancer in the years to come. But they complete the tunnel. The cooling pad is installed. The feared explosion never happens. By November 1986, 7 months after the explosion, the sarcophagus is complete. A giant concrete shell now covers the destroyed reactor. It is built in haste, designed to last 30 years. Inside, 200 tons of radioactive uranium and plutonium remain. The sarcophagus is not a solution. It is a temporary fix, but it prevents further release of radiation into the environment. The immediate crisis is over, but the consequences will echo for generations. In the months after the disaster, the Soviet government expands the evacuation zone. An area stretching 19 miles in every direction from the reactor is declared off-limits. 116,000 more people are relocated from their homes. An area of 1,000 square miles becomes the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Entire villages are abandoned. Farms are left to decay. The land itself is poisoned. It will remain dangerous for thousands of years. The liquidators who worked to contain the disaster pay a terrible price. Of the 600,000 who served, estimates suggest 25,000 have died from radiation-related illnesses. Tens of thousands more suffer from cancer, immune disorders, and other health problems. The true toll may never be known. The Soviet government classified much of the medical data. Beyond the exclusion zone, millions of people in Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia live with contaminated land. Thyroid cancer rates, especially in children, spike dramatically. Studies suggest thousands of additional cancer deaths can be linked to Chernobyl, but the numbers remain disputed. The full health impact is still debated decades later. The disaster sends shockwaves through the Soviet Union. For the first time, ordinary citizens question their government's competence. The secrecy, the lies, the delayed evacuation, it all breeds distrust and anger. The accident exposes the rot within the Soviet system, the bureaucracy, the corner-cutting, the suppression of truth. Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev later says Chernobyl was a turning point. The nuclear meltdown at Chernobyl, he writes, even more than my launch of perestroika, was perhaps the real cause of the collapse of the Soviet Union. Within 5 years, the Soviet Union will cease to exist. Around the world, the nuclear industry faces a crisis of confidence. Countries reconsider their nuclear programs. Some abandon them entirely. New safety protocols are implemented. International cooperation on nuclear safety increases. But the fundamental question remains: can nuclear power ever be truly safe? Today, the Chernobyl site is sealed beneath a new structure. In 2016, 30 years after the disaster, a massive steel arch is positioned over the old sarcophagus. It is designed to last 100 years and cost $1.7 billion. Inside, the radioactive core still waits. Too dangerous to approach, too complex to remove. The exclusion zone remains largely abandoned. Nature has reclaimed Pripyat. Trees grow through apartment buildings. Vines cover the abandoned amusement park. Wild animals roam the empty streets. It has become an accidental nature reserve, a haunting monument to human hubris. The Chernobyl disaster stands as the worst nuclear accident in history, a catastrophe born from a flawed reactor design, inadequate safety culture, and human error. A disaster that killed dozens outright and thousands more over time. That poisoned vast areas of land and shattered faith in nuclear technology. That accelerated the collapse of a superpower and changed the course of history. The lessons of Chernobyl echo still, a stark reminder of the price of complacency, of secrecy, of putting pride before safety. A warning that even the most advanced technology carries profound risks, and that when we fail to respect those risks, the consequences can last for generations. The fires are long extinguished. The sarcophagus stands silent, but the shadow of Chernobyl remains, stretching across Europe, across history. A monument to what can go wrong when humanity reaches too far, too fast, and forgets that some forces should never be unleashed without the deepest respect for their terrible power.